Hey guys, and welcome on into, I guess you could say, the final NHL season preview show. And today it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be looking at all 32 teams, going over players to watch heading into the season, players that I'm going to be looking at from a player prop, player point prop, and player assist prop, player goal props, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to jump right into it here. And we are going to start with the first team, which is the Boston Bruins. And the Bruins, the first guy on this list is Matthew Poitras, someone who kind of came out of nowhere for the Bruins this year and has played really well in the preseason and is projecting to possibly make the roster and potentially play on the second line. So the kid has made a big impression in the preseason, and if he does make the team and if he does play in the top, um, the second line or the third line, he'll definitely be a player that I'll target in player props. Jake DeBrusk is projected to play with him, but Jake DeBrusk is a guy that I'm looking at to step up. With Patrice Bergeron leaving the Boston Bruins, the Bruins are going to be looking for players to step up and try to chip in more offense and try to. Obviously, nobody's going to replace Patrice Bergeron, but try to bring some more offense that will be missing without Bergeron in the lineup. So I am looking at a big year from DeBrusk. I'll be looking at his goal props. Morgan Geeky, um, younger kid with a lot of talent or a lot of potential coming in here to Boston. And I think he could make a good impression and he could be a player to look at from a player prop perspective. And you might get some really good value with him as he's lower in the lineup for the Boston Bruins. But somebody I'm going to be looking at that once he gets hot, once I start seeing some points from him, I'll be looking at Geeky for the Boston Bruins. Going on to the second team is the Buffalo Sabres. And the Buffalo Sabres, a team that I'm looking at to improve this year. And we've already seen what their top line did last year in Jeff Skinner, Tage Thompson, and Alex Tuck. The three of them all played really well last year. A lot of chemistry between those three guys. And while there may not be a lot of value in their props, as eventually you're going to see Thompson over 1.5 points, and Skinner and Tuck will be minus 200 to get a point and that kind of stuff. But they are good parlay pieces. Same game parlays. You parlay Skinner to get a point. You parlay Thompson to get a point. And even if you want to throw Tuck in there, if that top line gets a goal and the two guys assist, you cash a plus money same game parlay. So that's how I'll be looking at those three players, most likely. Of course, if we see Alex Tuck or Tage Thompson or even Skinner go on a goal scoring streak, that's what I look at. Is when players go on streaks. That's when I usually bet on them. But of course, tune into Getting Well with Terry and Friends daily, where I'll be going over the NHL cards, giving out player props. So definitely tune into that show, the show, daily show. Rasmus Dahlin um, had a great year last year and is the number one defenseman on this team. Owen Power may one day want to have something to say about that, but right now, Darlene is the guy in the back end, especially offensively. And I will be looking at his assist props going into the year. So if I can get good prices on Darlene to get an assist, that's what I'll be looking at to start the season. Dylan Cousins, younger player that burst out onto the scene last year, and a lot of these younger players for the Sabres, I'm looking at to take the next step. And if Cousins takes the next step, he's going to be a money maker this year as he's not on the top line. So we'll get better value betting his props. Going on to the next team, which is the Detroit Red Wings. And again, this is a team where I have the top line in Lucas Raymond, Dylan Larkin, and Alex DeBrincat. And um, the reason for that is the Detroit Red Wings are a top heavy team where that top line is going to be their main scoring line. Other lines will have to contribute as well, but won't compete with this top line. When you're looking at Red Wings player props, it's going to have to be these three, I think, at the top there for forwards. Um, it may take some time to get chemistry going, but I'll be looking at player props for these guys. Lucas Raymond, I know he was plus money a lot of the time last year just to get a point. So I'll be looking at his props a lot this season as well. And Mort Sider, he was also plus money to get a point, and I think he's going to have a big year this year. So he's a player I'm going to be looking at for the Detroit Red Wings. Looking at the Florida Panthers, and the first player on this list, E2 Lusterinen, a moneymaker for me last year. If you watched my daily shows, I had Lusterinen to get a point quite often. And I'm looking at him again this year to have a big year, playing with Anton Lundell, projected so far to start the season, which is another player I'm looking at. So the fact that two of the main players I'm looking at on the Florida Panthers are playing together is awesome. Matthew Tkachuk, of course, is the main offensive guy on the Florida Panthers. When it comes to his props, it'll have to be a streaky type thing. So if he's got 4 goals in his last 5 games, I'll take him to score a goal. If he's assisting a bunch, I'll look at an assist. So it'll kind of be whatever he's doing at that time is how I'll look at Kachuk. Sam Reinhart, UFA after this season, someone who should be looking to have a good season to get a good contract. And right now he's projected to be with Lusterinen and Lundell. So that third line is the line that I'm going to be looking at mostly for the Florida Panthers. Looking at the Montreal Canadiens and another team where Raphael, Harvey Pinard, Kirby Doc, and Yaroslav Slokowski are on the third line. They are on the same line. Younger players and guys that I'm going to be looking at for player props, especially being on the third line. We're going to get a great price with them. So I will be looking at the player props for those guys. And then Mr. Cole Caulfield, but of course his nickname is Cole Caulfield. For the Montreal Canadiens to flirt with the playoff spot, which if you watch the Montreal Canadiens preview show, I did say that the Canadiens I thought were a team that could very well flirt with the playoff spot and are not as bad as they're kind of projected to be. But because of the way books are looking at the Montreal Canadiens, we're probably going to get some real good prices on player props, especially the three I have listed up there. Caulfield probably is going to be a bit juicier, being the main offensive guy in the team. But early on in the season, I think we'll get a better price with Caulfield. Ottawa Senators, Kachuk and Stutzel, same game parlay last year. Both players to get a point was a great look, great moneymaker last year. Claude Giroux is projected to be on that line with them, and that is just a dangerous top line. Giroux had a great year last year. Has played really well in Ottawa, so he is a guy that I was looking to look at player props wise, and to find out that he's projected to be on this top line. I will be looking at all three of those guys. Kind of like the Buffalo Sabres, do you parlay all three to get a point? Jake Sanderson just signed that big contract, second pair defenseman, but I'm saying keep my eye on him. I think he's going to come out here and say, yes, I got paid this big contract, but I got paid for a reason, and I think he's going to have a big year. So keep an eye on Sanderson props for the Senators. Looking at Tampa Bay, the Tampa Bay Lightning are kind of I don't want to say a tough team because they're very top heavy as well now, as they've continued to lose players in free agency each year. Steven Stamkos, I'm going to be looking at his props. Of course, there's drama in Tampa Bay with Steven Stamkos, and I'm hoping it doesn't affect his on ice um, productivity, but I don't think that would affect him. But we'll see how that goes overall. Braden Point, anytime goal props, will be something I'll be looking at. He is the main goal scorer on the team. I don't have Nikita Kucherov on here. And no, don't get angry at me, Tampa Bay fans. It's not because I don't think Kucherov is a good player. It's just that he is um, always really overpriced when it comes to props. Uh, you're gonna have to take him for over 1.5 points. His assist prop is too pricey for me, usually throughout the season. So Kucherov isn't someone I'm really looking at. I'm kind of looking around the players that play with him. Anthony Cirelli on the second line for the Tampa Bay Lightning, a center with a lot of potential, and is going to be someone that the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to lean on over the next um, quite a bit of years. Looking at the Toronto Maple Leafs, and yes, I don't have Mitch Marner or Austin Matthews on this list. And that's not because I think they're going to play bad or because of whatever. It's just that, again, their props are juicy and a little bit tough to bet singly. So, of course, it'll all depend on the prices that the books give us. But heading into the season, Tyler Bertuzzi is supposed to be on that top line um, with Matthews and Marner. So depending on the price of his props, he'll be somebody I'll be looking at. Matthew Nyes is on the second line. Definitely going to be looking at his props a lot this year, especially early on when I think we'll get good prices. Max Domi on that third line, but supposed to be playing with William Nylander. So low key, that third line might be a sneaky line, and we might get better prices again because it's a third line. So I'll be looking at Max Domi props, and I really like bringing Domi and Bertuzzi to Toronto. So two players I'll be looking at a lot for player props heading into the season. That is it for the Atlantic Division. Heading into the Metro, we have the Carolina Hurricanes. And when it comes to the Hurricanes, Andrei Svechnikov. I'm looking at Svechnikov to have a big year. Of course, he got injured last season, which is, I think, a good reason why the Hurricanes didn't make a long playoff run. But he is healthy and ready to go for this season, and he'll be somebody I'll be looking at for player props consistently. Seth Jarvis and Martin Necas, both younger players, a lot of potential, both supposed to be on that top line, and both will be players that I'll be looking at for player props for the Carolina Hurricanes. For the Columbus Blue Jackets, some younger players here. Adam Fantilli, um, he'll be the main player I'll be looking at for player props for the Blue Jackets. Kirill Marchenko. No, he's not Kirill the Thrill. There's only one Kirill the Thrill, but Marchenko had a great year last year, putting the puck in the back of the net. So he'll be somebody I'll be looking at for goal props. And Kent Johnson on that third line, but this guy's got potential. And if he gets hot at any point, 3 or 4 points in whatever 4 or 5 games, I'll be looking at Kent Johnson props. Next up is the New Jersey Devils. And with the New Jersey Devils, I could have just filled up the screen with players because the Devils are extremely deep. And really, there's going to be tons of players to choose from when it comes to player props. I do have Jack Hughes up there because he's consistent. And yes, you're probably going to have to take him for over 1.5 points, but it should be plus money. At the beginning of the year, we should get half a point, but that won't last long. I'll be looking at Hughes props, probably over 1.5 points is how I'll go. If I can get half a point, I'll parlay that with um, someone else like Jesper Bratt, who usually plays with him. Tyler Toffoli is supposed to play with him. Nico Hischier I look at for assist props last year. So that's what I'll be looking at for him going into this season is assist props for Heishier. And Dawson Mercer, who was playing a lot with Heishier last year, is projected to be on the third line this year, but I believe he will still produce on the third line and we'll get really good prices on Dawson Mercer. So keep an eye on Dawson Mercer. Next up is the New York Islanders. And yeah, it's pretty empty here. And that's just because the Islanders are just not a team that I'm going to be looking at for player props. Um, you have that top line. Oliver Wahlstrom is on the top line, so he'll be somebody I'll be looking at. But Barzal and Horvat will most likely be pretty pricey when it comes to player props. And the Islanders are just not a team that I see scoring a ton of goals. Of course, I did back Brock Nelson last year when he got on a really hot run. So if someone on the Islanders does get on a hot run, I will be looking at them. But really, the Islanders not a team I'm looking at very much when it comes to player props. The New York Rangers, Chris Kreider, anytime goal. He's a goal scorer. I will be looking at his goal scoring props. Philip Hedel on the second line projected so far. I'm playing with Artemi Panarin. Um, and I could see a really good season from Hedel this year. He's someone I'm going to be looking at for player props. I think we'll get a better price with him compared to other guys on the Rangers. And Adam Fox, assist props. Um, the earlier on in the season, the better because the prices are better for Adam Fox assists. But eventually it'll get up there to where it's out of my price range. But early on in the season, we should see minus 120, minus 125, minus 130, which is right around my cutoff line. And then we'll eventually see minus 150, minus 160 for Adam Fox. Next team up is the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Flyers are probably not going to be a very high scoring team this year. And when it comes to player props, this is the top line of Farabee, Morgan Frost, and Owen Tippett. So those will be the players I'll be looking at, but not the Philadelphia is not going to be the first team I go running to look at for player props. But I'll be keeping my eye on these three to see if they get hot. And if they do, I'll jump on them from a player prop aspect. Morgan Frost, definitely someone to keep an eye on. I really think he could potentially have a good year this year. Morgan Frost. Pittsburgh Penguins. And yes, I have one of the offseason additions on here, but I don't have Erik Karlsson. And that's because Erik Karlsson is going to be pricey when it comes to player props. Yes, so will Sidney Crosby, but I have Crosby up there because I'll be looking at his assist props early on in the year when they're better priced. And yes, I have Chris Letang on there. And the reason is I think adding in Erik Karlsson, I really think we're going to see a offensive boost from Chris Letang, kind of saying, "Hey, I'm still the guy on the back end for this team." So I think we'll get a good season from Chris Letang. So he's someone I'm going to be looking at. And Riley Smith, if you watch the Pittsburgh preview show, I was talking a lot about Riley Smith. I think it's a fantastic addition from the Vegas Golden Knights, and he will be someone I'll be looking at for player props. Players to watch on the Washington Capitals. Anthony Mantha is on the top line with Alex Ovechkin. And of course, when you're talking player props in the Washington Capitals, you got to look at Ovechkin, anytime goal. I think Anthony Mantha will do well on that top line. And Rasmus Sandin is kind of my value pick here. Probably get really good prices for him. But he's a young guy with lots of potential. Definitely wants to show the team what he's made of. So I see a good year from Rasmus Sandin this this upcoming season. That is the Eastern Conference. We'll now head over to the Western Conference, looking at the Arizona Coyotes. And the Coyotes Yeah, I've got 5 players up on the screen for the Coyotes, and that's because we're gonna get some value here with this team. This team is going to make us some money, and I know it's shocking, but, it's just what I'm expecting coming into this year. Clayton Keller, anytime goal, parlay him point prop with someone else. He'll be someone I'll be looking at. Barrett Hayden is projected to be on that top line. He was really good with Keller and Schmaltz last year. So he'll be someone I'll be looking at. We'll get a better price on him than we will Keller. Matthias Michelli, also a younger player that played really well last year, is projected to be on the third line, but still someone I'll be looking at, especially if he gets on a point run and is hot. I'll be looking at him. And the two guys there, Logan Cooley and Dylan Genther, I said in the Arizona Coyotes show because they weren't projected to play together at that time that I really think you should put those two players together, and they are projected to be on that second line for the Coyotes. I will be looking at both of them, Cooley and Genther. Those are two guys that I think will be money makers this year. So watch out for them and watch out for this Arizona Coyotes. Maybe not necessarily when it comes to winning games, but I think they're going to score some goals, and I think we're going to make some money on Coyotes player props. Now, this next team I'm going to get some slack for, but that is okay. The next up is the Chicago Blackhawks. And yes, I'll start right with the elephant in the room, Connor Bedard. I have an X right through Connor Bedard, and that is because all anyone is talking about is Connor Bedard. Connor Bedard. And especially on the road, he's going to have to face the best defenses that any team has. And they are going to be focusing on him because that is what that is the most dangerous player on the Chicago team. And everyone and their mother are going to be betting Connor Bedard props. It is going to be extremely overpriced to bet his props. And I will be looking at Connor Bedard under point props, especially on the road. No, it's not because I'm a homer and I love the Minnesota Wild. It's because Bedard props are going to be overpriced. Maybe not right away at the beginning of the season, but as the season goes on, his props are going to be extremely overpriced, and there's going to be value in taking him under half a point. Taylor Hall and Ryan Donato are projected to be on that top line with Bedard. Those are two guys that are going to be left open as people will be focusing on Connor Bedard. So Taylor Hall and Ryan Donato props are a much better look than Connor Bedard props. Lucas Reichel on that second line um, doesn't really have too much help on that second line. But if he maybe moves up and takes Ryan Donato's spot, which is definitely possible, I'll be looking at his props. If he just plays really well, I'll be looking at his props. But Lucas Reichel, someone I'll be looking at. And yes, there will be times to bet Bedard props. I'm not saying don't bet them ever, but I'm saying they're going to be pricey, and I'm going to make money betting against Connor Bedard. So we'll leave it at that. Moving on to the next team is the Colorado Avalanche. And when it comes to the Avalanche, Nathan McKinnon, most likely assists, Mikko Rantanen goals, and Kale McCarr probably assists as well, are probably going to be what I'll be looking at. Um, if McKinnon's half a point and Rantanen's half a point, parlay the two together. Same with McCarr. That's how I'll be focusing on the Colorado Avalanche. It's focusing on their 3 stars, unless there are other players that really get on a run and get hot. Looking at the Dallas Stars, and the Dallas Stars are a team where I could have probably had quite a few more names on here because they are an extremely um, depth filled team. Looking at their third line with Sagan and Duchesne, I could have had them on here. And if they get hot, I'll definitely be looking at their props. But the guys I'm looking at heading into the season for the Dallas Stars. Miro Heiskanen assist props, which will be a good, probably be priced pretty well to bet singly early on in the season, but that will change quick, and then they will have to be parlayed with other things. Wyatt Johnston, that's a guy that has a lot of talent for this Dallas Stars. Really young player. His best days are ahead of him, and we've already seen a lot of good things from him last year. I cashed on his point props last year at plus money, and we'll be looking to do the same thing this year. Rope hints, Joe Pavelski obviously play on the top line together. Pavelski goal props, Rope hints assist or parlay both to get a point together will be how I'll be looking at it. And you might be saying, hey, you forgot somebody, Jason Robertson. The problem with Jason Robertson is his props are extremely pricey. Last year, that was the case. While we could get other guys for half a point, uh, Robertson was always 1.5 points. And it's if you want to bet that singly, if he's on a really hot run, then yeah, you can do that. But if you're doing parlays or same game parlays, it's tough to take 1.5 points. So I'll be more looking at the guys on his line and Rope Hintz and Joe Pavelski. But if Robertson gets on like a goal streak, a scoring streak, then I will um, bet his props. I'm a very streaky points player point or player props better as I look for streaks. Going on to the next team, the Minnesota Wild, of course, the team that I follow the most. Kalen Addison, the quarterback of the top line power play, and Marco Rossi, a player who got sent down to the AHL last year, ninth overall pick a few years back, and has just not gotten um, accustomed and not been able to keep his NHL spot so far. Both of those players, Addison and Rossi, or I guess we're supposed to say Rossi now because you're supposed to roll the R. So Marco said to call him Rossi again. So Kalen Addison, and I'll just say Marco Rossi. Both stayed in Minnesota during the summer for pretty much the whole summer, and we're training. Addison working on his defense, Marco working on getting stronger. He added 15 pounds of muscle, and he just looks better on the puck. And while he is projected to start on that third line, um, and while I really would like him on the top line with Kaprizov, being on the third line, we're probably going to get value with Rossi. Um, Freddie Gaudreau is a good, speedy player to play with him to help provide offense. And then Marcus Foligno, while his offense did dry up last year, he'll be hitting guys and he'll be opening up room for Marco and Johnny Gaudreau. So I will be looking at Marco Rossi props because they will be priced pretty well to start the season. Matt Boldy, I'll be looking at his goal scoring props, maybe point props to start the season as well. When Kaprizov went, and even when Kaprizov was there, but more so when Kaprizov went out, Boldy took the team and put the team on his shoulders. So I'll be looking at Boldy props, and Joel Erikssonek, who plays with Matt Boldy, had his best year last year. Of course, the Wild really missed him in the playoffs. That's a big reason why the Wild were unable to make it past Dallas, is just not having Joel Erikssonek. So he's healthy, ready to go, and is also on that top power play. Addison, Boldy, Kaprizov, Ek, and Matt Zuccarello are all on that top power play. Yes, I could have put Zuccarello in here, but I didn't. So nothing against him. Looking at Zuccarello and Kaprizov, um, while Kaprizov is at half a point, I'll be parlaying him and Zuccarello both to get a point as they are on that top line together and have insane chemistry together. So I'll be looking at that, and then I'll be looking at power play props for Addison, Kaprizov, Boldy, and most likely Ek. Whoever's hottest on the power play at that time. probably Kalen Addison because he plays really well in the power play. So I'll be looking at him. For the Nashville Predators, Gustav Nyquist. I really, if you watch the Nashville show, I really didn't like that Minnesota was unable to keep Gustav Nyquist. He showed exactly what I expected from him. Was an offensive flair when he came back from injury after being traded for. He provided exactly what I thought he would for the Wild. And now he's coming over here to Nashville. I'll be looking at his props. He's supposed to be playing with Cody Glass on that second line. So those will be two guys that I'll be looking at, which will be better prices because obviously Forsberg on the top line. That top line will be um, the props will be more pricey, so that'll Nyquist and Glass there'll be more value. Thomas Novak is on the third line. We may not see his point props, but if his point over half a point props are up there, they'll be plus money. And if he's hot and scoring points, I'll bet him. And Yusuf Arsenin is supposed to be on the fourth line. Again, he was a player last year, kind of like Thomas Novak, that was a bit of a moneymaker at times and got on these streaks. So I'll be looking at Yusuf Arsenin. If he gets on any kind of streak for the Nashville Predators. St. Louis Blues, really simple here. The top line, Kyrou, Buchnevich, and Thomas. Those will be the three guys I'll be looking at for player props for the Blues. Pretty basic there. Going on to the next team is the Winnipeg Jets. And right at the very top there is Gabriel Velarde. I said in the Winnipeg show, I do not like the trade from LA's point of view, the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. Absolutely love the trade for the Winnipeg Jets, which sucks because Winnipeg is in Minnesota's division, but it is what it is. Gabriel Velarde, I'll be looking at his props. He's projected to be on that top line, which is where he belongs for this Winnipeg Jets team. Nikolaj Ehlers on the second line. I'll be looking at him, his props when he is scoring and assisting. And then Josh Morrissey, I'll be looking at his assist props to start the season when we get a better price to start the season. Next up is the Anaheim Ducks, and of course I have Troy Terry there, which was one of their top goal scorers last year. Yes, Zegras had a couple more points, but Troy Terry played less games. He will be somebody I'll be looking at from a goal scoring point of view. Leo Carlson, that's somebody I'm going to be looking at for a point prop, which will probably get a plus money. Yes, he's on the third line, but I'm looking at him to potentially move up for the Ducks, potentially maybe to that second line. But he's someone I'm going to be keeping an eye on for player props. And Olin Zellweger, a lot of people are like, who? He was drafted in the second round for the Ducks, and he is going to be a star for the Anaheim Ducks on defense. He's projected to be on that third D pair. We'll see overall if he makes the team or if he's in the AHL. But if he's in the NHL, we might get some good prices on his props if they're available. They may not be available, which might suck, but he's somebody I'm saying to keep an eye on for the Anaheim Ducks. For the Calgary Flames, Matthew Coronado, who's been lighting it up in the preseason for the Flames, somebody I really was hoping the Wild would draft, but unfortunately they did not. The Flames got him. And he is projected to be on that second line with Igor Sharangovich, who is another player I just happen to be looking at. So the fact that they're together, I think, is brilliant. I think that's going to be a dangerous line to keep an eye on. And we're going to get value with both of those guys when it comes to player props, especially Sharangovich, I think, to start the season. Edmonton Oilers, not going to be any huge surprises here. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, number one and number two in points in the league last year, and we'll probably do the same again this year. So obviously, you're going to have to pick and choose. I was looking at more Draisaitl goals last year, McDavid assists, which is what I'd recommend to start off this year as well. Dylan Holloway on projected to be that third line, but he's a guy who's got potential for this Oilers team and somebody that we might get good value on that isn't on the top two lines. Evan Bouchard on that top power play, pretty much Edmonton's best offensive defenseman. So I'll be looking at his player props. For the LA Kings, Adrian Kempe is on that top line with Quinton Byfield and, of course, Kopitar. I'll be looking at those three for different props. Kempe, more of a goal scorer. So Byfield and Kopitar might be at more of assists. We'll probably look at point props potentially for Byfield if they're priced well to start the season. And down there at the bottom, Fiala and Pierre-Luc Dubois are going to be projected to be on the same line together. And Fiala, a very streaky player, but once he is hot, I'll be on his goal scoring prop. And then probably be looking at Pierre-Luc Dubois assist props because of that. The Kings, of course, a team, if you watch the LA show, I don't like their goaltending at all. And their defense, I think, is still questionable. But they're going to be a team that's going to score goals. So we'll make some money on their props. Speaking of money, making money on props, no, I'm not crazy. It's the San Jose Sharks. And of course, what you might be thinking is, how are you ever going to make money on the San Jose Sharks props? They're going to be an awful team that probably aren't going to score very much. And that's exactly it. Because bookmakers have them projected to be such an awful team, their player prop prices are going to be pretty nice. Anthony Duclair, going to be looking at his goal scoring props to start the season. William Eklund, I'm really hoping he makes the team and he's on that top line with Hurdle because I will have Eklund and Hurdle point same game parlays and Eklund on his own because it should be pretty priced pretty well to start the season. So that's something I'll be looking at for Eklund. And then Philip Zadina there on the bottom right. I'm really thinking a change of scenery might do Zadina a lot of good. So he's someone I'll be looking at as well. And the San Jose Sharks, while they're going to give up a ton of goals because their defense and goaltending can match Chicago for worst in the NHL, I do think they're going to score goals. And I do think that the Sharks have a better offense than Chicago, just because I actually think the Sharks have more depth, which is crazy to say, but I think the Sharks are going to score goals and we're going to make some money on their props. Another team that I made money on last year from a side perspective and from a player prop perspective is this Seattle Kraken team. Jared McCann, anytime goal, Matty Beniers, assists or point props, and Jordan Eberle, assist or goal props, or parlay the three together to get a point. That'll be a great look as well on that top line for the Seattle Kraken. Vince Dunn to get an assist. We might go to probably again this year, it was last year when it was priced well. Eli Tolvanen on that third line, younger player. I'm saying to keep an eye on for the Seattle Kraken. We'll see what his point props are like to start the season. And then there's other guys because the Seattle's got depth on every line. So the Kraken just overall are a team to look out for starting this year. The Vancouver Canucks, Quinn Hughes, Captain Quinn Hughes, their best offensive defenseman, and maybe we could say their best player. Elias Pettersson might have something to say about that, but Quinn Hughes props I'll be looking at. Power play props. I think Quinn Hughes will be a really good player to look at player props wise. Same with Elias Pettersson. What a year he had last year, and this is a contract year from him. So I think we're gonna get his best this year. And Andrei Kuzmenko on that top line with Pettersson, goal scorer. he's somebody that I'm going to be looking at from a goal scoring perspective. And the final team, the team that won the cup last year, is the Vegas Golden Knights. Jack Eichel and Jonathan Marchessault. I will be looking at their props. I was on a ton, especially in the playoffs. Jack Eichel assist, Jonathan Marchessault goal. Parlay both to get a point. That was my go-to, especially in the playoffs. Moneymaker last year. Hoping it's a moneymaker once again this year. We'll be looking at it. And then Pavel Dorofeyev down there at the bottom may not make the team, but when injuries happen or if he does make the team and his player props are available, I will be looking at them because he is a guy that has a lot of talent and showed it last year in glimpses for the Vegas Golden Knights. And that is it. That is the player props, player to watch show. If you like the show, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Stay tuned. The next show that we'll have will be the first live show of the season on Monday night, where some people's might be recorded, but it still will be live. And we'll be going through power rankings. 5 different people ranking all 32 teams from worst to best. It'll liable to get pretty interesting. We'll have some different opinions, so make sure to tune into that. And then NHL picks, daily NHL show, AHL show as well. And then when the PWHL Professional Women's Hockey League begins, I'll be covering that on the channel as well. So a ton of hockey to be covered coming up. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on other shows.